a very warm welcome. Here's wishing you all a Merry Christmas. I'm Molly Kampir, starting off with our top story. Our top story on Gravitas tonight is a special one on the conflicts that shaped 2025. With battles raging on in different parts, new flashpoints waiting to explode, diplomacy meanwhile struggling to keep pace. We are decoding all of that for you in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, Tarique Rahman is back in Dhaka and the clock is ticking for him to prove a lot. We are getting you a detailed roundup of the latest coming in from on the ground after his arrival. Why is Israel looking to end its dependency on friends with a $110 billion arms infra push? We are telling you more about the messaging. All this and more coming up.
Thank you very much for being here.
In different parts of the world, the year is closing with carols, celebrations, festive cheer. But the fog of conflict hanging heavy in the air amid a reminder of falling missiles, continued devastation of cities, and failed diplomacy in different parts as well. From Eastern Europe to West Asia to Latin America to closer home in Asia, several battles continue unabated. More seem to be on the brink, presenting fresh challenges. Let's start off with the Russia-Ukraine war. Even after nearly 4 years of the bloody conflict, the two countries nowhere close to halting the fighting on the ground. In fact, the president of Ukraine has presented a peace plan. The proposed plan would freeze the current battle lines, allow Ukrainian withdrawals, and create demilitarized zones. We've been telling you about this. But Moscow reportedly has issues with that proposal and is currently analyzing the plan. On the ground, Russia said that its armed forces gained control over a settlement in Zaporizhia region in southeastern Ukraine. While Ukraine, on the other hand, claimed that its armed forces attacked multiple Russian strategic infrastructure, including a synthetic rubber plant located in the Tula region, and a Russian base for unmanned vessel storage and maintenance in Crimea. Kiev, for that matter, has shown signs of making concessions. But in his Christmas Eve address, Zelensky said, "May he perish," quote unquote, without naming the Russian president.
Today we all share one dream and we make one wish together. May he perish. Each of us may think privately, but when we turn to God, of course we ask for more. We ask for peace for Ukraine, we fight for it, and we pray for it.
Now, clearly the leaders don't look very eager to shake hands at this point, of course. Despite the rhetoric for peace, it might not look like it, but this is the closest that Ukraine has gotten to talking about peace. And that's all thanks to US efforts to end the war, it seems. And speaking of the United States, it is waging its own battles in the Caribbean. Tensions rising, the Trump administration continuing to focus its pressure on Venezuela, upping the ante with building a naval armada off the Venezuelan coast, while at the same time putting economic force as well. And in the latest, the White House has reportedly ordered US military forces to focus almost exclusively on enforcing a quarantine of Venezuelan oil for at least the next 2 months. While Trump has publicly been coy about his precise aims regarding Venezuela, he has privately pressured Venezuelan president to flee the nation. And Trump has threatened to start bombing drug infrastructure on land and authorized covert CIA activity directed at Caracas. The US Coast Guard is reportedly waiting for additional forces to carry out a third seizure of tankers. The Pentagon has amassed a huge military presence in the Caribbean with more than 15,000 troops, including an aircraft carrier, 11 other warships, more than a dozen F-35 aircraft reportedly. According to the Reuters report, Washington believes economic isolation could push Maduro towards concessions. The Trump administration, meanwhile, believes that by late January, Venezuela will be staring at an economic calamity unless it agrees to the concessions. The prevailing tensions in the Caribbean, meanwhile, have kept the world on edge, asking whether America can actually afford to wage an all-out war with Venezuela, because the Caribbean and Europe are not its own headaches as of now. In West Asia, meanwhile, its closest ally, Israel, continues to be in a proxy war with Iran. The calm feels temporary. Remember, it's been just 6 months since the two countries waged a 12-day war, and already Israeli officials are warning that the next clash may not be far away. They claim that Iran is rebuilding its ballistic missile capability despite the alleged setback that the Islamic Republic received at the hands of Americans in the June war. A claim that Tehran has, of course, denied. And recently, we've seen Iran more openly display and tout its ballistic missiles, its military prowess, even display its underground missile factories. On Wednesday, while speaking at a graduation ceremony for Israeli Air Force pilots, the Israeli Prime Minister said Israel is watching Iran and its proxies, like Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, closely, and is prepared to act. A rhetoric that he has often repeated. Listen in to what he said.
As these old threats change form, new threats are being born day by day. We do not seek confrontations, but our eyes are open to every possible danger.
The comments coming as Netanyahu prepares to meet Donald Trump in the US, where Iran's missile program and the possibility of future military action is reportedly expected to dominate the discussions. Analysts across Israel and the US claiming that if diplomacy fails, the region could face another fast-moving conflict and potentially something larger. The Gaza war, meanwhile, we've been telling you about the development, but the region still remains on edge. These conflicts falling short of the one that America is silently or not so silently waging with its geopolitical rival, China. You see, in 2025, going into 2026, the real focus of America's military strategy seems to not be Europe. It is undisputably the Indo-Pacific region. And we are not the ones saying that. The Pentagon, in its annual report, the latest report saying China is making steady progress on developing more sophisticated weapons and expanding its armed forces' ability to operate away from the mainland, including against Taiwan. Very significant. And the Pentagon believes Beijing has rehearsed invasion, blockade, strike scenarios. It says Chinese aircraft entered Taiwan's air defense zones almost 2,800 times last year, which is already a 60% increase from 2023. Remember, Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and has said that it is prepared to seize the island by force if necessary. That part of the world continues to occupy America's interests. And then something closer to home, another front seems to be on edge. In Southeast Asia, Thailand-Cambodia conflict recently broken out, continuing to simmer. As per the latest, Thailand and Cambodian delegations have opened preliminary ceasefire talks after clashes killed more than 100 civilians since December 7. And the talks reportedly laid the groundwork for broader negotiations and possibly direct talks between the defense ministers of the two sides. But the cross-border accusations continue to do the rounds, with Cambodia accusing Thailand now of using cluster munitions. Thailand vehemently denying that and says that its strikes targeted only military positions. Neither country is bound by any international ban as the conflict rages on. Air raids have reportedly forced schools to shut in Cambodia's Banan district, while several bombs reportedly hit the densely populated parts. Cambodia claims Thailand deployed additional fighter jets, and amid that chaos and the tensions, Thai Marines rescued 2 lions and 3 bears abandoned in cages near a casino complex located near the Cambodian border. The animals have been moved to wildlife breeding centers now. As this year draws to a close, whether it's in Europe, West Asia, Latin America, or Asia, one reality is impossible to deny here. The world is not drifting into conflict, it is being defined by it. Borders are being tested, alliances collapsing, civilians are paying the price in blood. On to Bangladesh now. The country's most prominent opposition leader, Tarique Rahman, has returned home after nearly 17 years in exile. A homecoming that could prove to be pivotal for the country's political future. The acting chairman of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the son of former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, Rahman is widely viewed as a leading contender for the Prime Minister's post there in next year's general elections. And upon his arrival, hundreds of thousands of supporters lined the route from the Dhaka airport to the reception venue, waving the party flags, carrying placards, banners, flowers, chanting slogans, welcoming him home. The opposition leader arrived dressed in a light grey blazer, white shirt, waving out to the crowd as he made his way to a rally site, where the BNP says it hopes to mobilize millions. Earlier, in fact, the leader briefly walked barefoot in a symbolic move to mark his homecoming. The video shared on the leader's Facebook page showed him taking a handful of soil after stepping out of the airport barefoot, addressing a massive rally in Dhaka. Tarique Rahman invoked Martin Luther King Jr., declaring, I'm quoting, I have a plan for the people of my country, quote unquote. And as he called for peace and unity, he said that he needs the cooperation of every person. Only then will it be possible to implement the plan. And the Bangladeshi media cited him as saying, and I'm quoting now, it is time for us all to build the country together. In this country, there are people from the hills, plains, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians. We want to build a safe Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, no matter who, a woman, man or child is, they should be able to leave their home safely and return safely, quote unquote. That's the statement. Now, it wasn't just Tarique Rahman that made headlines, though. Alongside the return of the BNP acting chairman, his pet cat also reached Dhaka today, brought in under a special arrangement, and the arrival of that pet adding a personal and emotional element to the occasion as well. Tarique Rahman's return comes at a rather volatile point in the country's landscape. The country has been on edge following the death of youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi, who died in Singapore after the assassination attempt early this month. Violence escalated further this week when a crude bomb was thrown from a flyover in central Dhaka, killing one person on the spot. Even today, there have been sporadic incidents of violence which have claimed at least 2 Hindu men reportedly in cases of mob lynching and bomb blast. In fact, Rahman is widely viewed as the front runner for the premiership ahead of the election scheduled for February 2026 and following last year's ouster of the country's longtime leader Sheikh Hasina in a student-led uprising that reshaped the country's political landscape. As for why now, Rahman had been unable to return for years due to multiple criminal cases, including convictions handed down in absentia. Those rulings were overturned after Hasina's removal, clearing the legal path for his homecoming. And according to analysts, Rahman is expected to fill a leadership vacuum within the BNP as his ailing mother remains seriously ill and unable to lead the party. With the elections round the corner, political tensions mounting, Tarique Rahman's return is already being seen as a defining moment, not just for the BNP, but for Bangladesh's fragile political transition and for the people on the ground. Tarique Rahman's return coming at a point of deep uncertainty, to say the least, with Bangladesh grappling with political violence, a fragile law and order situation, and an economy under strain. Many have been left jobless, anxious about what lies ahead. The question is whether Tarique Rahman can turn his words into actual results. Can he heal the polarized nation? Can he restore stability, bring calm? Can he lead Bangladesh back towards democracy and economic recovery? Shifting focus now to Israel, it has announced a major shift in its defense strategy. The Prime Minister has said that the country will invest about $110 billion over the next decade to develop an independent, self-reliant domestic arms industry. And the decision comes after nearly 2 years of the conflict on multiple fronts, which has put heavy pressure on Israel's military stocks and supply chains. Here's what he said.
We will continue to acquire essential supplies while independently arming ourselves. I don't know if there is such a thing as a country that is entirely independent, but we will strive to ensure our arms are produced as much as possible in the State of Israel. I approved a total of 350 billion shekels, 110 billion over the next decade, to build an independent armaments industry for the State of Israel. We want to reduce our dependence on any external party, including allies.
And the thing is, this comes amid Israel's rising defense spending. According to the Israeli government data, Israel plans to allocate 16% of its upcoming budget to defense, which is about $35 billion, out of an overall budget of $208 billion. Before the Gaza war that followed Hamas's attack in October 2023, Israel's defense budget stood at around $20.4 billion. For decades now, in fact, Israel's military edge has been closely tied to its relationship with the United States under a long-standing defense cooperation agreement between the two allies. Much of Israel's equipment used by Israeli army comes from the United States. And according to the U.S. Congress, in 2025, Washington provided $3.3 billion in military funding to Tel Aviv, along with an additional $500 million for missile defense cooperation. But that dependence has come under strain during the war in Gaza. Several countries have halted or restricted arms sales to Israel at different points, protesting the high civilian death toll. And these curbs have basically reinforced Israel's view that even close friends may not always be reliable in times of prolonged conflict. At the same time, Israel remains a major global arms exporter. According to the Defense Ministry's International Defense Cooperation Directorate, which is known as SIBAT, Israel's defense exports reached nearly $14.8 billion last year. The exports are up from $13 billion in 2023, Between 2018 and 2020, defense exports stood between $7.5 and $8.5 billion, highlighting the sharp growth in recent years, evidently. And in 2024, Europe has emerged as the largest buyer of Israeli defense goods, accounting for 54% of the total exports. The Asia-Pacific region followed with 23% of the total. In South Asia, India continues to be a key partner. India's arms trade with Israel has been described as the bedrock of the strategic partnership that has endured over time. In 2024, the arms trade between the two countries stood at around $185 million. According to the government and industry data, Israel supplied about 13% of India's total arms imports. There are several countries, of course, that normalized ties with Israel under the 2020 Abraham Accords. These countries include the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco. Together, they accounted for 12% of Israel's arms exports in 2024. It's a staggering rise from just 3% in 2023, quite a difference. North America, for that matter, accounted for 9% of the exports, while South America and Africa each made up about 1%. These figures that have remained largely stable in recent years. Israel's push is marking its preparation for a future, one that goes beyond strategic partnership, one where self-reliance is seen as important as friendship. Before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. A new year with the same old struggles for the women in Iran showing their defiance against the hijab laws. This is coming up next. For the first time in 25 years, Taiwan is getting a day off on Christmas. We are telling you more about this. Do men's brains age faster? We tell you what a study says. All this and more coming up. The world is gearing up to usher in a whole new year, but for women in Iran fighting for their rights, it's the end of a difficult year. Hoping for change, it seems to be a new year on the horizon with the same old struggles. But they are not giving up on hope. In fact, a report in The Guardian pieces together accounts of women on the ground in Tehran, and their message is strong and clear, that there is no going back. In the report, they narrate why they will not stop flouting the dress code laws. The report talks about how young women in Tehran are increasingly flouting the hijab laws. The Guardian report cites a Tehran-based journalist as saying that they never needed Khamenei's permission, nor do they need it now. Talking about how amid the serious issues in the country, like the water shortage crisis and the labor protests, quote unquote, hijab is an easy distraction while they deal with all these serious issues. That's the statement given to The Guardian. And one of the women cited in The Guardian report is quoted as saying, if I wear a hijab now, I feel I'm undoing all the sacrifices so many Iranians have made. There is no going back, quote unquote. Remember, the Mahsa Amini protests marked a major pivotal point in the hijab debate and the struggles. The death of Amini in September 2022, while in custody for allegedly flouting Iran's Islamic dress code, triggered months of protests and proved to be the biggest challenge to the country's clerical leaders in decades. In fact, early this year itself, in the month of March, a fact-finding mission mandated by the United Nations has said that the death of Mahsa Amini in the custody of Iran's morality police was unlawful and caused by violence, and that Iranian women still suffer systematic discrimination. The investigation established that her death was unlawful and caused by physical violence in the custody of the state authorities. In fact, the fact-finding mission found the protests that followed were marked by extrajudicial executions, arbitrary arrests, torture, ill treatment, as well as rape and sexual violence. In December, the country's supreme leader reportedly said the hijab was crucial to preserve the dignity of women and to restrain very strong and dangerous sexual urges. And within days, reportedly, the security forces on the ground intensified the hijab enforcement. Switching gears from the sky to the sea, India's power projection firing on both fronts. In just 48 hours, the country launched its heaviest rocket into space and a nuclear-capable missile from beneath the ocean. A twin strike that further cements India's might in space and in the oceans.
In a display of sheer strategic muscle, India has pulled off two big milestones in 2 days. Wednesday, the sky. Thursday, the sea. Day 1 saw India's heaviest rocket lift off from Sriharikota, successfully launching the heaviest satellite into orbit, reaffirming its growing space muscle. ISRO's latest mission marks a fresh milestone in India's space journey and a crucial step towards the country's first crewed flight. A day later, India showcased its military muscle. It successfully test-fired the K-4 submarine-launched ballistic missile from INS Arighat in the Bay of Bengal. Sources confirm the missile was tested across its complete operational range of around 3,500 km, a milestone that significantly strengthens India's nuclear deterrence. INS Arighat, commissioned last year, is India's second nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine. Built to vanish beneath the ocean for extended patrols, it represents the most survivable leg of India's strategic forces. From this hidden platform, the K-4 launch validated what matters most in modern warfare: assured retaliation. The K-4 is a central component of India's nuclear triad. The triad consists of 3 delivery systems: land-based ballistic missile, air-delivered nuclear weapons, and sea-based missiles launched from submarines. Together, they ensure that even if one arm is neutralized in a first strike, the others remain capable of responding. The submarine launch systems are the crown jewel of this structure. Their ability to stay hidden underwater gives them unmatched survivability. Even if land installations are targeted, nuclear submarines can strike back, ensuring credible second strike capability. The K-4 also marks an important technological bridge. It fills the gap between the shorter range K-15 and the future longer range SLBMs under development for the Arihant class fleet. This is about depth, endurance, and reach across the Indo-Pacific. India's deterrence now spans land, air, space, and the deepest oceans, resilient, layered, and ready. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Conservative political forces continue to rise in the Caribbean, and the latest to join that list is Honduras, a tiny but important country in the region. Elections in Honduras caught global attention after Donald Trump openly backed Asfura, who is now set to become the country's next president. fact, as soon as the results were announced, National Party headquarters erupted in cheers. In his first address after the results, Asfura said it's time for reconciliation, unity and peace.
Honduras, en Nochebuena.
This is a time for reconciliation, unity, and peace. We must recognize ourselves for what we are, one Honduran family. Today, with deep gratitude and honored to be able to serve in this way, I extend my hand so we may walk together with firm determination to work tirelessly for Honduras. I will not fail you. God bless you, and may God bless the bountiful land where I was born.
Una sola familia hondureña.
The results of these elections putting the country on the course of another political showdown, it seems. The opposition candidate has refused to accept the results. He alleged fraud and vowed to continue the fight.
Will not accept a result built on omissions. That is not my way of life. Accepting that would be betraying the trust of those who voted. And I did not come to politics in 2011 to look the other way and play pretend when things are going wrong.
And the margin of victory showing that the fight was tough, both candidates of Palestinian descent carry significant support base. Asfura prevailed with 40.1% of the vote, narrowly beating Nasrallah at 39.5%. And during the days-long counting, both the candidates took turns as frontrunners. The process was marred by several hiccups. And on the 1st of December, officials halted the counting when both candidates were in a virtual tie. Nasrallah took the top spot after counting resumed. The online count stopped reflecting on the 3rd of December due to technical issues reportedly. And by the 4th of December, Asfura took over the leading spot. The situation escalated on December 16 when thousands of people took to the streets against the delay in the vote counting. Supporters of Liberty and Refoundation Party blocked roads, burned tires in the capital.
Buenas noches.
And the stage seems to be set for further political confrontation in the country as the leftist party is making accusations of interference and centrist runner-up candidate is refusing to accept the results. For the first time in 25 years, Taiwan is getting a day off on Christmas, and it's a move that blends politics, history and culture into a single date on the calendar. This change follows the passage of a new law earlier this year by the opposition parties in Taiwan's legislature. The law adds or restores 5 public holidays, including Constitution Day, which falls on December 25. This means Christmas Day will once again be a paid public holiday across the island. December 25 holding a rather unique place in Taiwan's history. It marks the day in 1947 when the Constitution of the Republic of China came into effect. At the time, the KMT governed China from Nanjing. Now today, the KMT is an opposition party in Taiwan, remember, but it was the party that pushed through the new holiday legislation, saying that it would help commemorate the history of national development. The date itself was no accident. It was chosen by Chiang Kai-shek, the man who ruled Taiwan for more than 2 decades. Chiang was a baptized Christian, and his mausoleum is decorated with a cross. Just days before the Constitution took effect, Chiang said in a radio address that the Christmas of 1947 marks the birth of Jesus and would usher in a new beginning for the Republic of China, one of unity, independence, equality, and freedom. For decades now, people in Taiwan unofficially celebrated Christmas on Constitution Day. That changed in 2001 when Taiwan moved towards a 5-day work week and cut several public holidays, including December 25. The restoration of the holiday has also been welcomed by the workers. According to Taiwan's Ministry of Labor, the average Taiwanese worker put in about 2,030 hours in 2024, which is the 4th highest among 37 major economies. For many, these 5 extra days off a year is a rare but valued respite. Despite losing its official status, Christmas never disappeared from Taiwan's cultural life in a way. Many non-Christian societies around the world, like them, the island embraced Christmas as a social and commercial event. Friends gathered. In fact, Taipei's shopping malls filled up with holiday music and decorations were seen all around. So this Christmas, Taiwan is not just marking a festive season, it is revisiting a chapter of its history, balancing politics and labor reform, and giving millions a day to celebrate with their loved ones. US President Donald Trump is drawing attention this Christmas for remarks made during a long-running holiday tradition, which is the NORAD Santa tracking calls with children. What started out as a light-hearted conversation about Santa Claus veered into political territory, prompting reactions online over the president's style, even during festive moments. What exactly did Trump do this time around? Well, as part of a Christmas Eve tradition, now in its 70th year, the US President and the First Lady took part in NORAD's Santa tracking calls with children from across the country. And during one call, a 10-year-old from Oklahoma asked about how Santa's journey is monitored. Trump responded to that by joking that authorities were making sure that Santa was being good, adding that they wanted to ensure a bad Santa was not infiltrating America.
Well, we track Santa all over the world. We want to make sure that Santa is being good. Santa's a very good person. We want to make sure that he's not infiltrated, that we're not infiltrating into our country a bad Santa.
That remark, although it was delivered in a jovial tone, quickly stood out as one that echoed and invited reactions. American presidents have frequently made references to border security, even in a holiday setting. In another exchange, an 8-year-old told the president she hoped Santa Claus would not bring her coal. Trump replied to that by calling it clean, beautiful coal, briefly linking the moment to his long-standing support for the coal industry, before acknowledging the comment was a joke. The NORAD Santa tracking program, which allows children to follow Santa's Christmas Eve journey around the world, is intended as a non-political festive tradition dating back to the Cold War era. But Trump's comments have critics questioning the appropriateness of political messaging during an event aimed at children. Hours later, Trump continued his unconventional holiday messaging by posting a Christmas greeting on social media, wishing a Merry Christmas to supporters while also attacking what he called the radical left. For Trump, politics, it seems, rarely takes a holiday. And this time of the year is about gifts as well, but many consumers are staring at a rather awkward situation. Traditionally, most Americans avoided giving second-hand gifts. Receiving used items was considered an insult in a way by friends and family members. Things have evolved considerably now. More consumers are buying used jewelry, toy cars, other items than in previous years, owing to inflation and other financial pressures. As per a survey conducted by e-commerce firm eBay, 82% of around 1,800 US shoppers opined that they are more likely to buy second-hand gifts this year in comparison to 2024. The National Retail Federation, which is the largest retail trade association in the US, also conducted a detailed survey to gauge the consumer sentiment. Now, let's just break this down for you further. Over 8,240 consumers were surveyed. 85% of the respondents expressed concern that prices for gifts will be higher this year. Now, here comes the key point. They directly attributed this phenomenon to tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump. Additionally, 64% of the consumers indicated that they are likely to buy used items for gifting others. Among those preferring second-hand items, 46% revealed their reason for doing so is to save money. Now, this change in consumer behavior coming at a crucial point when the consumer's confidence in the US economy also declined further in December. The price index for gross domestic purchases, which is a key measure of inflation in the US economy, rose at 3.4% in the third quarter, as compared to a 2% rise in the previous quarter. And this has given impetus to thrift retailers, which are businesses who sell used items at low prices. One such venture, Savers Value Village, has tried to reduce the stigma around second-hand shopping by making sure all its stores are clean and nicely lit up. This company's sales grew by 10.5% in the July to September period, and it has continued to attract shoppers even in the current lean phase. Even as the US president continues to defend tariffs and insists that there is no inflation, the consumer sentiment on the ground depicting a different picture altogether. An economic upswing is still awaited. Switching gears for now, on the 101st birth anniversary of former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the Rashtra Prerna Sthal in Lucknow. It's a memorial honoring Vajpayee's life and ideals. The site features 65-foot-high bronze statues of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. What if the human body is quietly sensing far more than we ever thought? Think you've got 5 senses? You might want to think again. Scientists now say the truth about human perception is far stranger and a lot more complex. A new study claims we may have over 30 senses ticking quietly inside us. Take a look.
We see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. That's what we've always been told. Aristotle said it. Science textbooks repeated it. And we believed it. But now researchers say that simple story is wrong. Humans are sensory powerhouses wired with over 30 ways to feel the world. Your body doesn't just sense sound or light, it tracks pressure, temperature, balance, pain, hunger, thirst, and even your heartbeat. There's a sense that tells you where your limbs are without looking, that's proprioception. Another warns you when your blood sugar dips, that's interoception. Even your sense of ownership, knowing your hand is yours, is a sensory experience. Lose it, and the mind plays tricks so bizarre they defy explanation. Scientists says our daily lives are a symphony of signals. What you taste depends on what you smell. The sound of your own footsteps can change how heavy your body feels. The vestibular system keeps you upright as the world spins. There are sensors for oxygen levels, carbon dioxide buildup, inflammation, and even immune activity. Your body doesn't ask permission, it acts first. We are walking antennas, constantly scanning, calculating, and reacting to data points that are invisible to the naked eye. The classic 5 were just the opening act. The real show is happening deep within your synapses, where 30 different voices are screaming the truth about the world around you. You aren't just living, you are sensing on a level that borders on the supernatural.
Men may want to take note. Your brain could be aging faster than you thought. A major new international study is challenging long-held assumptions about how male and female brains age and what that means for Alzheimer's risks. Now, this new study suggests men's brains may age faster than women's, even though women are nearly twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. The research, published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, analyzed brain scans for more than 4,700 adults. From more than 4,700 adults between the ages of 17 and 95, all of whom were healthy and showed no signs of dementia. Scientists found that male brains showed greater shrinkage and decline across more regions than female brains, pointing to faster overall brain aging. The sharpest difference was seen in the post-central cortex, the area which is responsible for touch, pain, temperature, body awareness, which declined by about 2% per year in men as compared to 1.2% in women. Men also showed more deterioration in regions linked to memory, learning, vision, movement. Women, however, were not immune to brain changes, of course. Researchers found greater expansion of fluid-filled cavities called ventricles, a known marker of brain tissue loss in female brains. Experts say the findings complicate the long-standing theory that women develop Alzheimer's simply because their brains age faster. Instead, scientists saying the disease is driven by toxic protein buildups, with aging making the brain less able to cope with their effects. Other research pointing to possible biological explanations behind women's higher Alzheimer's risk, including inflammation linked to a gene carried on the X chromosome and the loss of estrogen after menopause. Having said that, researchers also cautioning that the study tracked participants for only a few years and does not predict who will go on to develop Alzheimer's. But the findings do add a new layer to a growing puzzle and suggest brain aging, much like the disease itself, may not follow a one-size-fits-all path. So while aging may be inevitable, of course, how our brains age and why is proving to be far more complex than once thought. And for scientists, the race to understand those differences is far from over. Pakistan's government shutting the door on Bollywood, but the audience kicking it wide open. Banned on the screen, stolen online. Bollywood's movies, cinema in Pakistan's shadows. From Shah Rukh Khan to Ranveer Singh, this is a story of love, piracy, and $1 billion bleed. While Pakistan bars Indian films from cinemas and television, millions of viewers are watching them anyway. Illegally, relentlessly, and in record numbers. Ranveer Singh's Dhurandhar has just crossed a staggering 2 million illegal downloads in Pakistan, all illegally done. No tickets sold, no permissions granted, no revenue earned. But the film exploded across Pakistan's underground cyber bazaar, overtaking even Shah Rukh Khan's Raees, once the most pirated Bollywood film in the country. This is not fandom, this is a parallel economy in a way. From WhatsApp groups to torrent sites, from pirated apps to street-side USB sellers, Hindi films move faster than censors can block them. Pakistan remains one of the biggest markets for Bollywood, not in box office charts, but in stolen clicks. Raees is the perfect example. The film was officially banned in Pakistani cinemas. It got no censor certificate, but the film lived on digitally, downloaded millions of times illegally, generating $0 for its makers. Dhurandhar proving that the trend has only intensified. The irony cutting deep here. Pakistani authorities cite nationalism and politics to justify the bans, yet the public votes with its bandwidth. Hindi dialogues trend, influencers make reels, Bollywood songs dominate playlists. Indian stars rule Pakistani hearts. But illegally, this love affair has history, of course. Indian films were restricted after wars, briefly reopened, then slammed shut again. following political flashpoints. Each ban was meant to choke influence. Instead, it pushed Bollywood underground, where piracy flourished unchecked. Rais, once Pakistan's most pirated Bollywood title, drew over 1.8 million downloads within months of release in 2017. Dhurandhar has now surpassed that with 2 million downloads. A digital theft, which experts say is worth over $3 million to Indian studios. And that's just one movie. Bollywood is banned in Pakistan, but Bollywood is everywhere in Pakistan. And in this invisible theater of sorts, India's biggest stars are still box office kings, only this time the box office seems to have vanished. And after 2 years of war, silence and shadows, Christmas returning quietly but powerfully to Bethlehem. As a fragile ceasefire in Gaza enters its second month, thousands of worshippers and pilgrims once again gathered in the town where Christian faith began. Take a look.
This is the town where the Christian story begins, where, according to tradition, a child was born in a stable, laid in a manger, because there was no room at the inn. Bethlehem has once again stepped into that story. After 2 years of war and cancelled celebrations, thousands of Palestinians and foreign pilgrims filled Manger Square, cheering, singing, and watching performances under the open sky. Tourism had nearly vanished. Festivals had fallen silent. But this Christmas, the crowd returned, cautious, emotional, and hopeful. At the heart of it all stood the Church of the Nativity, built over the traditional birthplace of Jesus. Inside, worshippers gathered for midnight mass as the choir's voices rose through stone walls that have witnessed centuries of prayer and conflict. In Vatican City, Pope Leo gave a strong message for Bethlehem, where Jesus was born.
To refuse one is to refuse the other. Yet, where there is room for the human person, there is room for God. Even a stable can become more sacred than a temple, and the womb of the Virgin Mary become the Ark of the New Covenant.
A solemn procession emerged into the night, while Palestinian police managed lines outside, checking entry cards, a reminder that even joy here moves through checkpoints.
I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and we've waited my brother and I, more than 2 years to come here. We've both been to Manger Square and the Church of the Nativity, but not on Christmas Eve. So this is a joyous chance for us to celebrate the Mass as Catholics.
I'm originally from Hungary, but I live in London, in the UK, and it's my first time in the Holy Land. I've been planning this trip for a very long time, and this is by far the most special Christmas I've ever had, and I'm just so grateful.
But in a land accustomed to war, even fragile joy matters. From Bethlehem, where hope was once born in a manger, Christmas has found its way back.
Animals at one of the UK's largest zoos getting into the festive spirit as well. From scented crackers, Christmas wreaths to edible trees, icy treats. Zookeepers at the zoo have rolled out enrichment activities designed specially to stimulate the animal senses during the holiday season. Take a look. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gampir, signing off. Here's wishing you all a Merry Christmas once again. Thanks for watching.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and